Hello, friends. Hi, and welcome. So, I know it's a little wrinkled today, but I just had an idea to do this. I'm going to be pulling one card a day from the Wisdom of Lord Ganesha to wrap up 2020 and prepare us for 2021. Now, I don't know how this is going to work, or where this is going to hit, or if I should do multiple. I think I'll do two. I'll do two a day. And either it'll be a this or that, or it'll be one sort of clarifying further the other. So let's get right into this, shall we? Let's get right into it. So let's go. And I think I am going to come live or talk about it a little bit. I'm going to actually work through it instead of just having like 15 different videos where I'm coming live talking about what I'm thinking about. So after this, I'm actually going to do that. But let's get into this. So the first wrap up number one, wrapping up 2020. I'll do the top of the deck and the bottom of the deck. So today, since it's, I'll actually count down. How many days are there? 27, 8, 9, 31. So we'll do 5 today. Or just do, look at number 3. We'll do it this way. So let's get into it. First card is Childlike Expression. Oh, okay. I'm gonna put these reading glasses back on. First card is Childlike Expression, and it's number 12. Childlike expression probably speaks of, honestly, what I'm getting off of this is that it's like everything, we've had the opportunity to close up cycles, right? And that's kind of what 2020 was. Now, at first, I think a lot of us thought it would be like a decade-long cycle, but 2020 gave us the opportunity to clean up quite a few decades worth of stuff. And I think childlike expression is the wonderment that we're going into 2021 with, that we're fully stepping into this new decade with into this new period of life. And every day, every second, every moment is a new opportunity, but this is like a grander alignment of opportunity, right? Because those are like, can be more like individual opportunities, but it's been like a huge birth of collective opportunity. And childlike expression is to go into the new year new, free, released, and renewed. And so it's like it's an opportunity, or it's a little nudge here that if there's anything left that we want to do before we come into the new year, it's a perfect time to do it. Like, don't leave anything unsaid or unfinished. Do it now. And like, the new year is just the day, yeah, but it also holds significance. And I think sometimes when we get to a certain level of spirituality, or even with like, regardless of spirituality, when it comes to things that are synthetic or that are man-made, we sort of think that they don't hold any significance or importance or weight at all. It's like, oh, time is an illusion, it's a construct, it doesn't matter. The new year is another day, it doesn't matter. Like, you can make it into this thing, but it doesn't have to be. But in some ways, even if they are man-made, they are like, they still hold weight and they still hold power because it's the construct in which we live and operate, right? And so it's like, if you're in a, like, let's say you live in Antarctica, right? And you know that June is coming. So it's like, you can hold the perspective that like, oh, summer is about to start, it's about to warm up and all the snow is going to melt. Okay, well, snow starts to melt in spring typically, depending. But it's like if you live in Antarctica, like it's still going to be snow, it's still going to be cold. It may be warmer, maybe, but like it's still going to be like frozen. And so it's almost like it doesn't matter how you view whatever. If that's the domain that you exist in, then it is what it is. Just like if you live in an area of the world that experiences seasons, it's like, well, time is an illusion and the calendar isn't real. But, you know, when the seasons shift and change, the seasons shift and change. And so here I think there's a little bit of, it's this, everything is a paradox. I'm sorry I keep pausing. I was drinking this tea that I have. I tried to put the lid back on it, but it kept falling off. So there's no putting the lid back on this one. But that's what I'm getting from this so far. Um, and I guess I say that because the new year holds significance, even if it's just a day or even if we follow a different calendar. Like, let's say you follow an astrological calendar, and I guess the Chinese New Year follows an astrological calendar. It follows the Aquarius new moon, or any other astrological sort of calendar. This day holds weight, and those days also hold weight. And it can affect us to varying degrees, depending on how much we like align to those things, but it still holds some significance regardless. And so I would say make the most of it. Before the new year rolls around, whatever you can take care of, like, you know, why go into the new year holding on to it? Why go into tomorrow holding on to it? You know? So I can read this, but it would be even easier if I put on my other glasses. So I'm switching pairs really quick. There we go. Childlike expression. I'm such a fan. Sorry. Childlike expression. In truth, within every soul exists an aspect known as the inner child. You can champion your inner child's emotional life by listening carefully to what you need and want in your own heart. You have been taught to give up your own desires for the sake of others. This is not necessary. Ganesha is bringing the guidance that not acknowledging your desires and needs takes away from your life force and defeats your spirit. As a child, you were a sensory expert. It is now time to re-stimulate your inner child's ability to look, listen, touch, and explore the world in order to reconnect you with your emotions. Practice trusting your inner knowing or senses. Give your inner child love and a voice. Express your true feelings. Connect deeply to yourself on an emotional level by allowing all of your uncomfortable feelings to reach the surface of your awareness and be seen and experienced. Find patience and joy in simple things. Take a step away from acquiring material things and take pleasure in the wisdom of your own soul. Love, respect, and honor your inner child. Allow time for play in whatever mode that pleases you, be it socializing, singing, yoga, travel, taking a walk, dancing, meditating, or writing. This is how your inner child operates. It knows no boundaries, holds no expectations, and loves unconditionally. All right, I guess I could have set that down a little more gently than that. But I love that energy. And I know Rustling Around is it I found his channel at some point over the summer. And that's what he's been saying that the solar eclipse in December was all about. And that the Lionsgate portal was the Lion Club portal this year, which was to prepare us to come into this, to come more into the energy of the inner child. Now, since that started, we've discovered that the inner child, or he's discovered that the inner child, like the child part of inner child, is a bit of a misnomer. um, and that it's not how we think of a child. Like it's not naive or inexperienced or anything like that. And so at the same time that we're learning to reconnect to the inner child, we're also bringing our it's like we're bringing our experience to the equation to allow that inner child to grow and to almost like integrate into our lives and integrate into this world. And so while we're not necessarily crushing our inner child like the world seems to crush children, it's more like we're making it informed. We are informing the inner child and empowering the inner child to come into their authenticity and to hold that as they experience life. And so they maintain their core, but they also learn how to navigate in a way. And that matured inner child he refers to as the luminous warrior. So, and that was number 12. Number 12 is a three. And, threes have been a theme lately in the Six of Pentacles. And three is, it's a catalytic number. And with this childlike expression, what it does after we allow our inner child to grow and mature, then our luminous warrior becomes the catalyst for the world around us. We become the catalyst for our lives instead of life being a catalyst for us. And that's when, again, when inner child energy learns how to work with the energies that are around it instead of being isolated and separated from them, then it can better handle, address, navigate, create, do whatever in a way that's more sustainable and fulfilling and things like that. And it's almost like it's switching and flipping the paradigm, but it's like we can't be in that energy if there are still things about reality that we're not willing to sort of accept. And I feel like a lot of times when it comes to a lot of spiritual practices, it kind of sort of reads as domination and dominion over your experience. And while like you eventually will more naturally get more to that point, that's not the point. And so if that's the perspective that we hold, then it turns into us like forcing shapes into pegs or forcing pegs into holes that they may not necessarily go into easily. But if we apply enough force, some things might break off to fit in the hole or the hole might tear. Oh, goodness. But if we apply enough force, it'll go in. But when we're working with it, then not only are we finding holes that more closely reflect those pegs, but the pegs will conform to fit the holes, and the holes will conform to fit the pegs. And it becomes a lot more smooth and a lot more natural. And so there is that, because like a catalyst is something that is throughout the course of the process unchanged, but it does change on the in between. It changes here to facilitate the merging of two other things. And once those two things come together, then it is released and replenished at the end. But it still has to attach to one and hold it in place and guide it to the other before that bridge can be connected. And it has to ensure that that connection is stable before it releases and allows itself to be reformed. And so there is that respect that we have to have, and there is that grounding that we have to have, and there is that nurturing that we have to do to ensure that whatever it is that we're trying to create, not only that it happens, but also that its creation is stable before we kind of sort of move on. Anyway, it's about respect and not dominion. Next, excuse me, is number 37, cultivation. Ooh, I love this. Hey, look, there's a little mouse down there. There's a little mouse. Now, elephants are, shown to be afraid of mice. I wonder if, like, elephants are actually afraid of mice. This is how it's like, I wonder if I wonder if elephants are actually afraid of mice or if they're more so afraid of, like, killing them. Because if an elephant steps on a mouse, the mouse is over. And mice are so small and so fast compared to the elephant that it's like they could potentially step on a mouse and not even know it, but they would feel that loss of life, an unintentional loss of life. And it's more so a fear of, like, ending the life of another than it is like a fear of that in and of itself. And again, because of the speed and the size differences, it's like if the mouse gets under the elephant and starts freaking out, and the elephant starts freaking out, then it's like in the process of them trying to avoid each other, the elephant ends up inadvertently stepping on a mouse. It's like my mom, whenever she hits a squirrel, she starts, like, screaming. She's like, "Ah, like, why did you do that? Why didn't you get out of the street? Why did you just, like," I don't know why some small animals just like squirrels, when they see cars and it's like they run into the street. Anyway, and so this cultivation, I feel like it's cultivating an awareness and a sensitivity for others in a way that, like, moving forward, we don't have to worry about inadvertently sort of making things worse. And while we always are to be sort of conscious and cognizant, to be conscious and aware of the impact that we have on others in the world around us, it's like depending on the space that you cultivate, it's like you don't really have to worry about that, right? And I think sometimes, depending on what our experience with self care, or depending on what our experience was with being able to do things for ourselves, sometimes it's like maybe we feel selfish if we do something for ourselves, or we feel that if we get something, then it takes away from something else, or it takes away from someone else. And then it's like, well, do I deserve this more than anyone else? Like, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, these are things that you don't necessarily have to worry about because what's for you is for you. And there's enough in the frequency of abundance for everyone. Anyone who aligns to it will find it. And just like you aligned to it and found yours, so too will others. And it's not for us to pass up on our opportunities when they come for us. So, cultivation. Let's see what the book says. Listening to music can heal, encourage, and nurture your soul. Your spirituality is an essential part of who you are, and it forms the framework of your world. Music resonates with the human spirit. At the heart of humanity is the song of the soul. Music has the power to unite communities, cultures, and civilization. Listening to music can heal, hearten, and support your soul. Studies have found that musical tones communicate with and have an energetic impact on the cells and organs of the human body. It is believed that the cells vibrate and essentially have their own musical intonations. Listening to music can help heal and uplift your energy. You may find that by tuning into uplifting or calming music, you create space for greater contemplation and, in turn, gain more clarity about what you are creating in your life. It can also bring about a stronger connection to your higher self or to oneness. Music cultivates community as sound fosters communication and greater unity. Cultivation is a continual process that develops, encourages, and nurtures. There is a spiritual connection that forms between the music and the listener. Ganesha is inviting you to incorporate music into your life in a way that will augment your spiritual expansion. Listen to soothing music while you prepare for your day. Move away from the noise of excessive electronics and digital images and back to a more melodic existence. Take time to sit and listen to music. Doing this can shift your energy to a clearer and more receptive state. Sorry. What that immediately brings to mind is the type of things that we listen to whenever we're in a certain mood, right? I know that there are some people who say that if they're angry or upset, then listening to songs that are like if you're like depressed, basically, listening to depressing music makes you feel better. Or like if you're angry, then listening to angry music makes you feel better, rather than sort of like going to the opposite end of the spectrum. And I guess with cultivation, it's an interesting concept then, that because it's like, well, what are you feeding when you're in a space that you don't want to be in, but you indulge in that energy even more? Then what do we think or expect for the outcome to be? And beyond what do we think or expect for the outcome to be, what do we want the outcome to be? If we get in a mood like that, do we actually want to get out of it? Or do we want to indulge in that? And while there is truth to us needing to honor our feelings and needing to feel our feelings, is there a line where, or is there a point where too much indulgence is too much? Is there a point where listening to music that fits that just sort of cultivates and nurtures and nourishes that energy in our life to the point where we go there more and more and more often? We dig ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper into that energetic trench work rather than listening to something that will fill those trenches, elevate us out of those spaces, and then over time, like close the windows and the doors and the gaping holes that lead to that like realm of emotion and feeling. And then also sometimes we experience things that, like, if we're angry or upset or sad, then the body just like naturally, the mind naturally gravitates more and more and more towards things like that. Like it feeds itself. And then again, it's that question of, okay, well, like when we intentionally have the opportunity to determine the space that we're in, do we do things to take ourselves out of that space, or do we feed into it more? What are we cultivating energetically in our own lives? And does it support where it is that we say we want to go? And if it doesn't support where it says that, where we say we want to go, then like, what does that show us? Music is powerful, movement is powerful, vibration and tone and rhythm is powerful, harmony is powerful, and also discordance is powerful. The lack of harmony and melodiousness. And I think it's just something to think about. And even like outside of music, right? If we're ever in a space of doubting or questioning, do we do anything to prove to ourselves or to allow the universe and spirit to prove to us that our worries and fears and insecurities are unfounded? Or do we do things that allow for those things to run rampant and consume us? Are we actively counteracting and counterbalancing those feelings, or do we just let it take us? Because if we allow it to take us, then what it does is it in our minds and in our psyches, and even spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and energetically, because as humans we are creatures of habit. What it does is it creates these programs that sort of run themselves, right? Like if you're going through a rough time and you get like some ice cream and you watch a sad movie and whatever, then it's like whenever you get sad, then like you're going for the ice cream and you're going for the movie. And it's not that that's necessarily bad, but if there are circumstances and situations in our lives that make us sad often, and we eat too much ice cream and we watch too many sad movies, and we're not doing anything to make ourselves feel better or to solve the problems that we have, if we're distracting ourselves more, then what it does is it creates these programs that sort of like subroot us away from actual growth and healing. And it gets us to run these loops and cycles off to the side. Where if we shifted our focus back to addressing, then it's like there would be less need for us to do things like that in the first place. And so cultivation is a question then of what are we going to allow to continue in our lives, and how are we going to respond to things in the future? Are we going to respond by not responding? Because inconvenience and setbacks and things like that, I don't necessarily say that anything is a constant in life, but it's probably going to happen. And when it does happen, how do we handle it? Like, do we do anything to elevate ourselves, or do we just stand by, do nothing, and then cry and complain when nothing changes? And do we actually do anything? Because I think a lot of times we think that we're doing something different, or we think that we're handling it maybe. But if we take an honest look, if we take a step back, then it's like we're not. As soon as we're confronted, we back down, we hide, we isolate, and then we go home and we cry. We put on the sad music or the angry music or the depressing music, and we just sit in that until it passes. All the while feeding it, making it stronger, nurturing it so it grows and its hold over us increases, rather than in the moment addressing it. And whenever we get into a pattern, whenever we get into that trench work, we can't see above ground. We can't see outside of the paradigm and program and structure that we've created for ourselves in that space and that time and that moment. And so there may be times when when the trenches are deeper, where it would be more effective to, in that moment, not even try to remedy the situation because you're already there. And again, if you can't see above ground, then it's going to be very hard to even break even to get to the point where we can sort of move out of that in that time and in that moment, which is why I think cultivation is asking us to almost slowly over time begin to feel those things and to begin to indulge or to partake in things that get us out of situations and positions that we don't want to be in, that get us out of feelings that we don't want to feel, instead of that take us deeper and deeper into that. And again, I think it's a question of what do we want the end result to be? If you're feeling bad, do you want to actually feel bad? Do you actually want to feel worse? And that's why you do the things that you do. Are you not actually interested in feeling better? Are you not actually interested in things actually going right? Are you not interested in not having all of these excuses as to why you can't do what it is that you want to do, or why you can't be where it is that you want to be? Because it's easier to blame others, and it's easier to be the prey to our circumstances and situations and our upbringing and the things that we didn't have and the things that we don't have. But we always have a choice, and the choices that we make say something. So before we end out the year, again, I think this is a question of where it is you actually want to go, and what do you do to support yourself in going there. And again, it's like, as humans, it's just like things are complicated. Things get emotionally complicated. But like, this is like, the music matters. I remember personally one time, like, when I get mad, I get more mad. And it's very hard for me to not be angry and upset when I get angry and upset. And like, if I'm not actively doing anything, then my brain will just, like that, it'll just feed itself. And I remember one time, I've always had like good roommates to decent room. Okay, well, before like what, 2018, I had like December 2018, I think, was when one person moved in. Yeah, because 2019 August I moved in. Yeah, December 2018 I met my first problem roommate, and at first it started chill. He had a lot of stuff going on, and I am not the one. And I think since I typically try to be agreeable and non-confrontational, sometimes people think that like I'm a pushover and they can walk all over me, and that's not the case. And I think he thought that was the case. And so we, I guess, had a little bit of a disagreement. And I'm I'm a stubborn one, so I was not gonna give in. And one day he made me mad, and he was also the type of person who was like he would go out into the common space and talk super loud where like everyone can hear whatever he was upset about, but he would never actually say anything or do anything. Like, it turns out he's the one causing all these issues and then complaining that no one else is fixing them. And so, for example, one day, like, there was this little trash can in the kitchen area, and he was like, "Ooh, the trash smells." And I was like, "Yeah, it does." And he was like, "Somebody should take it out." And I was like, "Yeah, they should, but I don't use this trash can, so it's not going to be me." And who uses the trash can? Who makes it smelly? This dude. Who complains about it but doesn't take it out? This dude. And I'm not going to do it. And so one day, my other roommate, the one that I actually knew, um, he's kind of he's a lot more sheepish than I am, I'll say. And he said that one day at like 6 a.m., the dude went out and started like screaming and yelling. And he was like, "So I just took it out." I was like, but anyway, I was mad. I was upset. To get myself out of that situation and out of that space, I listened to this song called Positive Vibes. And I was in my room dancing for like literally an hour and a half to 2 hours. I think I tried to stop after an hour, and I was like, "Oh, I'm feeling good." And then I started to get mad again. So I kept going until I wasn't in that space anymore. And it worked for me. And that was kind of huge because, again, like, that's one of the things in me that builds itself. For some people, that can be like, especially if you have anxiety, it could be things related to insecurity. So it's like you mess one thing up, or you think you mess one thing up, and then it's like all of your failures just start coming to your mind, and you start beating yourself up and attacking yourself without any real effort. The cultivation, I guess, is asking like, what are some things that you can do in that moment that prevent you from going all the way there? What are some things that when your vision is being clouded, like what are some things you can do to bring clarity to that situation? Or to at least keep yourself as level as you can instead of sinking and diving all the way into that. And eventually, again, like as you fill in those trenches, and because you change your patterns and your habits, then it's like things don't necessarily trigger you as much as they used to. Things don't happen as much as they used to. And again, it comes through the space of like addressing things and handling things in a way that resolves them instead of in a way that kind of sort of pushes them off to the side. So anyway, bottom of the deck today is oh my gosh, it's joy. Da 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 da. Let's read joy. I'm excited for joy. Let's cultivate more joy in this childlike expression moving forward. I remember when he first started talking about like the inner child, and I was like, my inner child is not necessarily like always like nice and whatever. Like, if my inner child got to do whatever, my inner child will do whatever, and like it's inquisitive and it's things like this. But if like things don't make sense, then it's like this don't make sense. And I'm not just gonna go along with it because everyone else is going along with it. Like something here is not right, and someone's got to say something about it. Oh, look, I opened right to it. 47, joy. It's an 11. Joy is a state of the heart and soul. Joy happens when the heart and the soul unite. This union is to achieve expansion for a greater good related to your divine path. Joy can create in you a sense of contentment, acceptance, and serenity. Even when your life is in flux, you feel a deep knowing that whatever might happen will be for the highest good for all involved. When you have this knowledge in you, it brings spiritual determination. Even though difficult circumstances, such as those that you may currently be undergoing, hold up, wait. Even though difficult circumstances, such as those that you may currently be undergoing, you will ultimately find your happiness. Oh, even through. Okay, sorry. I was like, hold up, that sentence don't sound right. Even through difficult circumstances, such as those that you may be currently. Okay, let me stop. Let me slow down. Let me take a breath. Okay, goodness, get it together, Patrick. Even through difficult situations. Oh gosh, what's wrong with me? Even through difficult circumstances, such as those that you may be currently. I keep inserting a B where there's not supposed to be one, and it's throwing me off. Even through difficult circumstances, such as those that you may currently be undergoing, you will ultimately find your happiness. Thank you. Through this card, Ganesha acknowledges your stress and exhaustion as you work to adapt to new patterns of behavior and release your old stories. Fitting. You may not be happy right now, but you can experience joy in knowing that striving through a difficult situation is important. You are urged to realize that you came into this lifetime to undergo certain experiences and to learn very specific life lessons. Be honest with yourself. Allow yourself your feelings and emotions. Remember that if your heart is feeling wounded and is healing, if your heart is feeling wounded and its healing is taking place, you are likely grappling with deep feelings and sentiments that may have even been repressed in you for lifetimes. Share your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and anxieties with those who can support you at this time. Joy will be the final outcome. Your energy and your inner light are shifting to reveal your life's grand plan. In this card, Ganesha holds garlands made of Aruku flowers, which have the ability to eliminate negative energy from the body and mind of a person. In your mind's eye, make an offering of garlands made of Aruku flowers to Ganesha. In exchange, Ganesha blesses you with good health and freedom from ailments. And that's kind of sort of, I feel like, related to what I was saying with that cultivation. So glad I wasn't just making it up. But even if I was, shoot, there are the garlands. That's interesting because I was playing Persona 5 yesterday, doing a crossword, and like Hawaiian garland was the thing, and of course the answer was lei. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! There's another mouse here. There's another mouse here. This time the mouse is offering Lord Ganesha something, or it's holding. This is like Aquarian energy. Oh my gosh! Because Aquarius is the water bearer, right? And then here we see the mouse with the vest on. So maybe the vest is something that we put on to keep ourselves warm when we're in the cold. It's something that we put on so that we don't have to focus on whatever is causing stagnancy and hibernation in our lives. And it's like it's cold in an area where it's not supposed to be. But as long as we don't get to the bottom of the situation, root chakra, it's a bit vest too. So hey, then it's like it'll continue to be cold in this area. Now, through the space of the water bearer, we're vulnerable and we're open and we're going to bring spring back to where it should be spring. I had a dream about that once, actually. I'm going to go through my app and read it really quick. But I love this because, I mean, that was 2020 for a lot of people. It was a challenge, but there's always joy that can be had, especially through successful navigation of those challenges. Sorry. Okay. Let's try to find this dream. Oh no, I think it was the opposite. I think in the dream it was the opposite. I think in the dream it was supposed to be cold, but it wasn't. Oh gosh. There are dreams that I promise that I logged because I feel like I remember reading them. But then when I get back to it, they're not there. I'm like, what? Where did it go? Where did it go? I don't think it's this one, but let's see. Yeah, it's not that one. It's not Atlas. And that dream, it was interesting. So I've started having these like lucid-ish experiences. And I've talked about it before, but it's like I'll wake up in a room and like I'll like in the dream I feel like I'm like actually waking up in a room, but it's not my room. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I'm dreaming. And from that space I can navigate to wherever. And there was one time I woke up in this place and I guess I wasn't supposed to be awake, but I'm like, I'm up and I'm like dodging the little like guards and stuff as I'm exploring around. Um, and then I discover like there was a place that was supposed to be cold. Hey, it's winter time now. Interesting. And it was supposed to be like, you know, the holiday season, but like there was no snow and it was all like bah humbug and stuff. And I like, oh, it's like I put the star back on top of the Christmas tree, and it brought winter to this place where it was being kept from happening. So that was basically the dream. I don't think I'm gonna find it. Oh, gosh, that was funny. Secret library. It might be this one. No, 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 it wasn't that one. I think I might have looked for this dream before. So, yeah, it doesn't look like I'm going to find it, but that's fine. Um, that was basically the dream. But this is like the opposite, right? And so it's like now that the holidays are over, it's like it's time for spring, it's time for renewal. But I think there's a part of us that knows that this renewal is supposed to be happening. And maybe if we're not doing anything to really take care of the things that life is trying to get us to take care of before we move on to the next phase, then it creates this stalling energy. And in the space of the stalling comes a lot of, in the space of stagnancy, things sort of fester. And so festering happens. And when the festering happens, we put on this coat. And so instead of going to find whatever is keeping us in this space of eternal winter, we just sort of like, we get our coat, we build a log cabin, we build these fires, and we learn to deal with it. Joy is asking us to navigate through these difficulties, remove the source of the stagnation so that spring and rebirth and renewal and joy can come back into our lives, so that we can be in this space and place of childlike expression where there is no expectation, no boundaries, and no like preconceived notions or fears that we project onto situations that stop us from getting where it is that we're meant to go and being who it is that we're meant to be and receiving and having all of the things that we desire. So that's what I got today. Honestly didn't think it would be this long, but that's fine. Honestly, shouldn't be surprised. Um, and yeah, I'm gonna be doing this every day. Well, maybe. We'll see if I spoke too soon. As of now, the plan is to do this every day for the rest of 2020, just to get us to, maybe see some things or to help us close some chapters before we move into the next year, to leave some 2020 things in 2020 that we don't need to take forward. Um, to end out these chapters and cycles. Just in case, like if maybe we kind of sort of missed it the first time, or we didn't really fully see it, then it's just to help illuminate. And everything that I do, it's to help illuminate for you something that could use some illumination in your life. You don't have to take or accept or whatever anything that I say, because at the end of the day, it's your life, and you're gonna do whatever it is that you want to do, and it's your right to do that. It's just my hope that sometimes, even if things are difficult or challenging, that we face those difficulties and challenges to make life easier and better in the long run, to learn what we need to learn to grow in the ways that we need to grow. Because if we don't, like, when we don't face those things, they don't go anywhere. They kind of sort of get bigger. And there's almost this energy of like, it goes back to the habits and the patterns. It's this energy of like things that weren't that huge when it first happened, but through the course of like repeated ignoring and avoidance, then it becomes a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger issue. Almost in the vein of like it has this backlog now, right? And then it becomes this thing of like, well, like why is this the first time ever hearing? Why is this the first time I'm ever hearing of this? Why didn't you say anything before? Blah 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 blah. And it's like, well, at first like it didn't really matter too much, but like now I'm like, this is something that I don't like. And it's like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And depending on who or what the situation the person is, they can take that and be like, okay, yeah, so I'll stop doing that moving forward. Sorry that, it made you feel this type of way. I didn't know. Um, or some people will be like, some people go on the defensive. And instead of honoring how you feel, they will sort of like attack you because they don't want to be like wrong or bad or whatever. And it's like, if it's unintentional, then it's unintentional. Like, there's no real person to blame here. It's just, this is how it made me feel. And at the time, maybe I didn't feel comfortable saying anything at the time. Maybe I thought it was a one-off occurrence, but you know, it's continuing to happen, and I'd like for it to not. And like, those are always my favorite people, who can, like, who I feel safe going to with stuff like that, and who feel safe coming to me with stuff like that. Because I'm not the type of person really to like I care about how other people feel, and I care about how I make other people feel. And so if someone ever calls me out and they're like, "Hey, like, Patrick, it didn't, like, I didn't feel good when you did that," or like, "It didn't sit right with me when you did that," then like, I try to address it rather than like feeling attacked. And it was like, "Well, uh, I don't appreciate that you called me out on how I made you feel." No, I feel attacked. And then it's like they make it about them. I don't like when people do that. And I know it's a very natural reflex for a lot of people, but I own up to it. Even if it's in the space, like, and I don't believe that people should have to call us out in private, especially if we put them on the spot in public. Cause it's like, it's, I don't know, it's just, it's weird. Now, if it's something that like you legitimately and honestly don't know about, then they could do you the courtesy of, you know, pulling you to the side and being like, "Hey, whatever." But there's a whole public of people who may now think that this is acceptable. And now this person may have to deal with that from all of these people. So why not address it in front of everybody so everybody knows? Anyway, if there's someone that you need to have a conversation like that with, have that conversation before the end of the year, maybe even before the end of the day in which you see this video, unless you're seeing this. Well, yeah, yeah. Well, unless you're seeing it at like 11:59 p.m., then, you know, I guess then do it the next night. We can all do it in our own time. It's like, the faster we do it, the faster it's resolved, the faster we move on. And I honestly feel like we're really coming into cycles where a lot of our worries and our doubts and our fears and our insecurities, it's like we don't have to really worry about them anymore. But at the same time, we're still dealing with ourselves, we're still healing ourselves, and we're still growing and maturing into ourselves. And other people are doing the same. And right now, it seems that whatever guides me is like, it's constantly reassuring me that it's safe and it's okay. And there are times when it's a little hard. It's not extremely difficult, but there are times when it's a little hard for me to sort of like accept it in a way. But whenever I do express my feelings, or whenever I do have that conversation, then that part of me that knows that I don't have to worry, like, it's validated. And it's like, the longer I go without having that conversation, the more my mind sort of wanders. But at this point, my relationship with that part of me that knows is, it's strong enough that ultimately, like, I know I don't have to worry. But sometimes in my mind, it'll play out like, am I being too understanding? Am I being too compassionate? Like, does this mean that I don't love myself? And it's like, no, it doesn't mean that, you know? Which is why communication is key. Communication is important. And yeah, we're all learning and growing, and none of us are perfect. I'm not even perfect. And I say I'm not even perfect like that because I feel like a lot of times, I don't want to say like I'm pretending or that I put on like I'm perfect. But again, oh, I guess I didn't do that on this channel. LOL. So, but I'm a very principled person, and I take my principles very, very seriously. And I'm still human, so it's like, you know, there are times when I don't even want to call it a lapse in judgment, because in the moment I'm like, Should I do this? Probably not. Am I gonna do it anyway? Yup. um, but to me, like things like that are important. And that's why, like, if I'm confronted by someone, that's one of the things that I value about myself, and that's one of my principles. So even if it's in public, I'll take the L, I'll take the hit, I'll be uncomfortable, I'll be put on the spot because I'm not gonna make someone else uncomfortable and then demand that they make me comfortable in addressing that uncomfortability. And I don't necessarily understand why we kind of sort of place that demand on others. And again, it's a very human thing to do. It's a very self-centric, egoic thing to do. And no one wants to be put on the spot. But it's like, it's a courtesy that I'm glad to extend to other people. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this. Maybe some of this will help somebody out though. Maybe it's relevant to you in some way. What is this? Joy. This card been on the table. I already didn't put everything back. Oh, I didn't put everything back. Oh my gosh. Joy's just been on the table. Okay, work. I guess I didn't shuffle these, so I'll give them a shuffle to end this. I wasn't going to do a final message, but I do want to shuffle this out before I move in tomorrow. So maybe I won't get a final message. I'll just shuffle these. Yeah, there's Joy. I was like, hold up, wait. So I guess I will get a final message because, I picked these back up for a reason, right? And I talked some more, so maybe something will validate what I was just saying. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. And that's the thing. It's like I can trust that when it comes to like a job or a situation. But when it comes to like other things, honestly, for me personally, there have been times and things and situations in my life that I had an absolute knowing about. Like when I was applying for colleges, I knew that I would get accepted to Purdue. I knew it. Even though my case wasn't necessarily like I had a strong case, but even though like because I kind of sort of stopped caring about grades in like seventh grade, and so I took a few C's in high school because of laziness more so than anything, because I wasn't doing any homework. But I would still like ace all the tests. I'm like, that should be what matters. And they straight up lied to me. They were like, in college, like you're not gonna have homeworks and quizzes. Like your grades are gonna be like all based on exams. I'm like, oh, bet. Like, okay, so I'm about to ace these classes too. That was not the case. That was not the case. I was also told, oh, your professors don't care whether or not you're in class. That's also not the case because I've had classes with attendance policies. And if you miss like more than 3 days, that's an automatic fail. I failed a class. I failed a class because I missed too much class. And then I talked to the professor to make up the work, to take the exams. And then at the end of the semester, he's like, oh, I was like, I got an F. Like, excuse me? Like, I thought I was doing decent. And he was like, oh, well, you missed too much class. And I'm like, so, like, what have you been having me make up all of this work for? Why am I like catching up if you're just going to fail me in the end anyway? Hello, excuse me? Especially like if I'm proving that I got the material, is that not more important? Apparently to him it wasn't. Anyway, I get to college and homework is the reason and attendance is the reason why it took me as long as it took me. Now, after some time, it took for me to talk to like resources on campus, and it took for me to do some other things to, to create a framework that worked for me, that would get me to succeed. And eventually I did because, the girl just got her degree. It ain't coming in the mail yet, but it's on its way. But when I wasn't saying anything, when I wasn't addressing anything, when I was suffering in silence, then it's like what can be done if no one knows? You know? I forget why I was talking about that. Oh, okay. Final card. Since apparently, like, we want one of those. Final card, please. I was real shook that he failed me though because of attendance. Because I'm like, I've been working with you for literally weeks to catch up and to get everything done, and like intimately working with you, and I know the material, and you're gonna give me like attendance policy. Like you could have told me that before, and I would have saved my effort because I'm gonna have to take this class again anyway. But that was in the program that I was in before I switched into the program that I'm in now. So I was in chemical engineering before I switched into biological engineering. The reason why I switched into biological engineering is because chemical engineering had a policy that you can only take a class twice. And usually, because, so I'll get full into it. I was diagnosed with a condition called retinitis pigmentosa back in like between 2006 and 2008. So like when I was in middle school somewhere. And so basically like I have nearly no night vision, and my peripheral vision will continuously decrease to until I'm like legally blind. Um and so that shook me a lot, and that was the major source of my depression for a long time, and I never addressed it because it's like in my mind I guess it was like, how do you sort of accept the fact that one day your sight is just going to be gone? Like, how do you live with that? Some people's like, oh, I'm going to see everything that I can see, and I'm going to really live my life. And it's like, financially, if I had the money and the resources to like be traveling and seeing the world before I lose my vision and making these memories, then maybe I would have done that. But I didn't have the funds to do all that. And then it was like I was in school, and I'm like, okay, well, like, what's the point? Like, I can go blind before I even get to work, and then like I'm paying all this money for what? What is my degree even worth when I can't even use it because I can't see? It's like when it comes to love, it's like if I love somebody, I don't want to force them to be with someone who can't see. Then it's like they can't do this and they can't do that, and then it's like they'll have to take care of me, and I'll feel bad, and it affected nearly every area of my life. I was super depressed for a very long time. So what would happen is in the spring semester I would do well. In the no, in the fall semester I would do well because it starts at the end of summer and it goes into winter. But the closer we got to winter, the more depressed I would get because the days got shorter and I have no night vision. And so it's like it's dark when I go to class and it's dark when I get out of class. I feel like I don't have a life. I'm just in my room depressed and sad, and I start missing some class and doing some other things. And then I get depressed about missing class. And then I get depressed about missing and wasting this opportunity. I get depressed about, the ways that my family's had to sacrifice to get me this opportunity. And it's just like this whole depressed storm. And I'm not really facing and addressing the root cause and the root issue, which was me learning to live with the RP, the retinitis pigmentosa. It's a retinal degenerative disease. Now, so what happened was, like every spring semester, I would basically fail because at the start of spring in January, I was depressed until basically spring break when the days started to get noticeably longer. And then so I would have like half of March, well, like a week of March and April to try to recover a whole semester of classes. And 9 times out of 10, it didn't work. Right? Because I would also be depressed about all the class I missed, and then I would just like not even try at the end. And so what had happened was I had a rough fall semester that was followed by a rough spring, and those two like back-to-back rough semesters had me fail this one class twice because I wasn't doing any homework and I wasn't going to class. And in this program, you could only fail in the chemistry program at Purdue. You can only fail a class twice, or you can only take a class twice. So you can only fail it once. And after I failed the second time, and it wasn't because I didn't understand the material. And I think they also had an attendance policy in that class. And like homework would be weighted so heavy. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like 45% of my grade. Or like even 30% of the grade. And then if I'm missing class, I'm probably missing some quizzes and exams, and it's like homework would be a certain percentage, and then sometimes like they would have these in-class assignments, and that would be worth like 5% to 10%. So between homework and that, I was done. Um, but before I left that semester, one of the people that I had worked with for a minute said that she was actually with someone who he had a macular degenerative disease. And he was like, oh, there's this center that he goes to, and like there's this research and all these resources. And of course, that made me hopeful AF. And so I had to approach the board. This was what, 2015. First, because I got dropped from the university because I had two bad semesters. I was on academic probation. I had another bad semester. They dropped me. So I had to apply for readmittance. And then I had to appeal to the Board of Chemical Engineering to be accepted back into the school. And of course, I'm like, I've been dealing with this and I got this issue. So in the fall is like, even if you look at my transcript, like in the fall, it's good. In the spring, it's terrible because I spend the first half of the semester depressed. But like now I've like talked to somebody and I got this resource and I'm actually going to begin doing things to like address this instead of just letting it affect me. And I'm already going to talk to like the Disability Resource Center and like all of this other stuff. And they ain't care. I didn't get accepted back into it. And so I think it was actually the week of my birthday that I had that appeal because one of my best friends was on campus and I was like, I'll just stay with you for my birthday. And I had my first drink, like my first drink. No, my first drink. Yeah, I had my first drink that week with her. It was, I think it was some Jim Beam. That's why I love whiskey, like bourbon whiskey, specifically Jim Beam. Um, that's why I like the harder stuff because someone who drinks the hard stuff got me into drinking. um, but so I submitted my thing for readmittance, and then I had that meeting with the board, um, and I did like all that the week I was there. And I found out that I didn't get back into it. So then I met with the advisor from this program, or I met with biological engineering, and I was like, here's the situation. This is why I'm like codoing. Like I said, change of degree, whatever. This is why I'm switching my major. And I got in and I was with the same advisor from 2015 until I graduated. And so I was admitted under the fall catalog. And in the fall catalog, they had like 3 different concentrations. But I was there for so long that I don't even think they offer my concentration anymore. It might have been the 2015 or the 2016 catalog where that changed. But since I was admitted under the 2014 catalog, like that was like those were my degree requirements. So I might be, don't quote me on it, but I might be one of the last pharmaceutical process engineers that graduated from Purdue. That would be interesting if that's true. I'm gonna go back and check the catalog because I think that might be true. I'm like the last pharmaceutical process engineer that Purdue has had from the program of agricultural and biological engineering. Um, and that advisor, he would always tell me like it's about perseverance and determination, and like it doesn't matter how long it takes you. And he would be like, like my parents didn't speak much English, so I always struggled with English, and it was about perseverance and determination. And I persevered, girl. She persevered. She pushed through. Admitted 2015, graduated December 2020, and I had started in 2011. So I came into the program with some credits. And that's another reason why I chose biological engineering. It's because quite a few of the credits transferred. And then, so I couldn't take that class a third time in this school. And so I changed my major and then I passed it. And I'm like, yeah, of course I passed it. Like I told y'all why I failed it the first 2 times. And even if you talk to the professors, they would probably go, oh, like, yeah, like for the stuff that he's there for, he gets it. It's just like attendance and homework and not showing up. um, I'm going like all the way into my story, but that's fine. And so I kind of sort of explained to my advisor when I got in the situation behind why I had to code. It was like about my eyes and stuff. And so we would actually talk about that because when I didn't do well in a spring term, I was like, yeah, it's because I'm doing this and I was doing that and I was depressed. It wasn't until, so I guess I was admitted fall 2015. So it was summer 2017 when I finally got like diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And after I got the diagnosis, then I went to the Disability Resource Center to update my disability catalog because I already had the thing for my eyes in there. And basically, with the eyes, like since I can't see at night, I would take exams in the daytime instead of doing evening exams. At Purdue, exams typically fall between like 5:30 and like 10:30 at night. Um, and a lot of the exams were in the evening, and I'm like, I can't see to get to these exams, and it's a lot of people. And people like at nighttime, people just absorb light. They don't reflect like anything. And so like when it came to the sidewalks and when it came to the grass and the buildings, like it's like I'm walking slow because I can't really see. But all of these things reflect a little bit of light and they reflect different amounts of light. Like the grass will reflect a different amount of light than the sidewalk. And so like I kind of know when I'm on the sidewalk and I know the general direction that I'm going. But with all those people, it's like I can't see anything because people don't reflect anything. They don't reflect any light. They just suck it in. Is that reflective of where we are as a collective? I don't know. Anyway, so I got my man. I'm like really going into this. I might watch this through and timestamp it. I will timestamp this, like all the personal stuff beyond this point. Um, and so I updated after I got the diagnosis. Now I was an RA 2016, 2017. And I was already distracting myself and not taking care of the things that I needed to take care of. So when I was in charge of 42 residents who were primarily freshmen, and a lot of them, it was like their first time away from home and they were getting used to like life on campus. And Purdue is hard. I think a lot of people go to Purdue being like the smartest person in their class or the smartest person in their town or their town. Well, some of them may be the smartest person in their town or the smartest person in their school. And then you go to Purdue and Purdue, like I said, Purdue is hard. It crushes people because for the first time, it's like they're not the smartest number one, and they might not do well because the classes are the classes are the classes. And unofficially, Purdue typically has a high acceptance rate. And so people will say that like in the first year, there'll be a lot of weed out classes. And so it's classes that are kind of sort of like when you start Purdue for multiple reasons, it seems like some of the classes are harder than when you're finishing Purdue. And so in the harder classes, that's when people either like they'll transfer to another university, they'll change their major, they'll drop out, they'll do whatever. Um, and so the first 2 years, like class sizes are huge. Um, so when I was an RA, it's like I had to like talk to my residents through that. And I remember one of my residents, like he physics at Purdue is notorious for its difficulty. Like when I was in physics, 60% on an exam was like a B. I heard a few years later that like on one of the exams, the average was like a 40%. Literally 40% average. And so a 40% was like, or like a 50% would be like a B, and a 40% would be like a C. And you would hear stuff about like the physics department being in trouble because like whatever. And then there are some professors with egos, it seems. And so they pride themselves on how difficult their class is to pass. But in reality, I feel like everyone else is looking at that as like, if it's hard for people to pass your class, that may show more of your incompetence as a teacher then it's like, why are you using that as a medal of honor or a badge or something to elevate yourself with when like you're supposed to be a teacher? You're proud that your students failed? That don't make sense. Um, and so anyway, one of my residents didn't do that well on his first physics exam, and a lot of people go into Purdue with smart being their identity. And so when they fail their first exam or their first semester, and all of a sudden it's like they're not smart anymore, or they feel like they're not smart anymore, and they're not the smartest, then it's like, well, who am I? And they have these like crises, and some of them, unfortunately, and also depending on other factors, um, like for some of them, they'll be on like an academic scholarship internationally or something like that. And because of grades, they may lose those international scholarships, or they may be afraid of losing those international scholarships. And then even some domestic students, like when something that close to your identity is challenged or taken away, it can be difficult to put yourself back together. And so unfortunately, there are some people who, take their own lives. Um, but I remember one of my residents, I think it was before winter break, he was like, nobody here cares about me. He was like, my professors don't care. I was like, I care about you. He was like, yeah, but you're my RA. And now in my mind, I'm like, okay, yeah. But also at the same time, do you know how many RAs there are that don't care about their residents? Not for a lot of people, for some people, like being an RA is just being a job. And you get your tuition remit, you get housing and meals for free, and like all of this, and you get paid. So it's a job for them. They do it for the benefits, not for the impact. Now, when I became an RA, that was one of the biggest things for me was like, am I ready to like be a positive force in people's lives? Because my freshman year, I knew two other people from my high school that went to Purdue. One of those girls I had literally been in classes with since I was in kindergarten. So from kindergarten to college, we were in class together until she graduated on time, and then I was still there. Another girl, we started talking senior year of high school because I found out that she was also going to Purdue. And it was actually through her that I met my best friend because she did like a summer camp at Purdue before our first semester. And so she met my best friend. And then there was free pancakes at like midnight in her dorm. And she was like, hey, my dorm is doing free pancakes. And I went over there. And that's where I met my best friend through her because like we both knew her. And we both lived in the same dorm. So we walked back together. And usually I'm like reserved and stuff, but I was like talking to her. Turns out we had the same freshman engineering class. She was also in there, and we became really, really good friends. Like we had and like have well, yeah, we have like pretty similar academic paths, even though our interests are like within the same umbrella, but like different subcategories. And so we had a lot of class together, and it was amazing. She's the one that I went to go stay with for a week when I was doing the readmittance and whatever. Anyway, um, I had to pour out to my residents, and I wasn't pouring into myself, so I didn't have much. And that's also when I met my Libran best friend, who I talk about all the time. And like him, I kind of sort of feel bad for him a little bit, but at the same time, I didn't. Because I was like, even though I am going through a lot right now and my patience is super thin, it's like there are still things that you're doing. Um, but we both stuck it out. Um, and so my grades dropped because I stopped going to class. In the spring again, it was the fall semester wasn't great because getting used to the RA job was so like it was more demanding than I thought it would be. And again, I wasn't pouring into myself. And so while I didn't have trouble pouring into my residents, it was just like me not doing what I needed to do for me wasn't great for grades. And then spring hit, and I was depressed the first half of the year. And I had 2 bad semesters, and I lost the RA job, right? And what happened though is I ended up going to counseling and psychological services on campus. It's called CAPS. And they're the ones who do like they can diagnose, and they do like Purdue has the mental health sort of like the staff in the like it's stretched thin. And so it's not necessarily I should probably like leave them a review and stuff. It's stretched pretty thin, so the wait times can be pretty long. Um, but the care that I got there was excellent. And there was this dude named Alex, and I did therapy for a few weeks when I was younger because my mom wanted us to do it, but that didn't really last. But Alex was like so cool. And I think I talked to him in the spring, and I couldn't do the testing to be diagnosed with anything because they were stretched thin. But I was going to be on campus over the summer, so we decided to do it over the summer. So summer 2017 is when I was diagnosed. So going into 2018, since I went to the Disability Resource Center, they hooked me up. So I was like, um, so basically what it did is it took into account like I'm missing class because like I need these mental health days. Now, when I had the mental health days, also with medication, also with therapy, um, it made it so that like I wouldn't miss class for as long. And I think I did medication before group therapy. And in that semester, I was good. I don't know if it was necessarily all of the medication or if it was like I think it was partially the medication, also partially the fact that I was doing something to address what I was feeling and going through. Also because I had those letters to be like, hey, like, I'm gonna be out of class today because my condition is flaring up and blah blah blah. And so what that did was it gave me the means to like having those classes excused meant that I could do homework and stuff like that when my brain was functioning to be able to do it. And so not only did it help with attendance, it also helped with homework because, before that, it's like, oh, well, you missed the deadline. It's a zero. A zero's a zero. Sorry, can't do anything. Bye. But I also did have to learn, like, it wasn't a perfect immediate fix because I also had to learn to like leverage that condition. And there were some times when it's like I would be having that, I would need to take a mental health day, but I wouldn't tell my professors. And since I didn't tell my professors, then it's like they didn't have to accommodate me for that. But eventually I got it worked out, and it was very helpful. And then my eyes got worse. So this whole time, my eyes were getting worse and worse. I thought it was because of the eye condition because they never told me about cataracts, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh. And so that added extra anxiety. I had anxiety about graduating because once I'm in the real world by myself, it's like if I can't really see anything, how am I going to function? What job am I going to do when I'm blind? And all this other stuff, a bunch of stuff that I wasn't addressing. And every time I talked to my professor, he would be like, okay, well, like, what are you going to do? And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. So I did end up going to CAPS. I did end up going to therapy. I did end up doing medication, and I did end up doing all those other things besides addressing what I needed to address. So eventually, come October 2018, I am like a month and a half from graduation, a few weeks from graduation. I get triggered because I hadn't dealt with any of the like after graduation real world anxiety. Because at that point, I still wasn't handling anything. Got super depressed. I talked about it before. That's when I had my darkest night. I gave up. Basically, I stopped trying. Had my darkest night. I decided that I had to start facing things. Now, I one of the things that led to my darkest night is the progression of the cataracts, which I thought was the deterioration of my eyesight due to the retinitis pigmentosa. And so I couldn't play video games anymore, and I couldn't read the subtitles when I read anime. And anime and video games were two of my biggest coping mechanisms, aka distractors. And so when I lost my distractors, aka my coping mechanisms, things became very, very, very dark fairly quickly. And when I had my darkest night, when I was like, if I ever reach this point again, I don't know if I'm gonna live through it. I decided that I had to start facing things. And so that's when I started my like 2 hour meditation. It was actually interesting because I had been thinking about meditation before. And there was this other dude on campus who I fell for. He's a Taurus. He's amazing, gives excellent hugs. That's fine. He's moved on. I've moved on. I moved on as if we were anything. Um, I guess our friendship was cemented. And I was a student and he was a professional, even though I was like, I'm what, like 2.5 years younger than him. So like he's like this 25-year-old, I'm like this 23-year-old. And he's like, well, technically you're a student. I'm like, girl, whatever. Anyway, whenever I would talk to him, he would like force me to go back to CAPS. He's like, okay, we're going to CAPS. You're going to talk to somebody because I'm worried about you. Having someone who worried about me enough to force me to do those things helps because I'm stubborn sometimes, and at that point I didn't do the things that I needed to do for myself to actually progress and address and heal and mature and grow. And so I was talking to somebody who I did group therapy with. Now, when I did group therapy, I was in a very good position. I had just been medicated. Things were going well. I was excited. And so in group therapy, I'm just like, oh, whatever. And the semester after that, they were like, well, we don't really have enough people like for group therapy this time. Or like for whatever reason, I think our schedules were so conflicting that there wasn't a time where everybody could meet. And so there weren't enough people interested in a group at the same time to have group. And having group is a lot more effective, not effective, but group is easier than individual because the resources are stretched thin. And in group, like you can have more people. You can fit more people into that time slot. So when I needed group wasn't there. Also, Alex, the dude who was amazing, who talked to me before I got diagnosed in the summer, because they were like, "Well, are you interested in like doing individual therapy, or you could do group therapy if you want to do that?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I would love to like do individual therapy with Alex." And they're like, "Oh yeah, Alex was great, but he's not here anymore." And I'm like, "Alex, where did you go? I needed you, Alex, and you left. You left me, Alex." He was cool though. And I feel some type of way about having a cool therapist because like I actually wanted to be friends with Alex. And because of um lines not getting blurred or whatever, it's like you probably shouldn't have a personal relationship with the people that you professionally work with. But he was like, you seem like fairly self-aware. Like you already know what's up. I'm like, yeah, I know what's up. I'm just not doing anything about it. So for me, individual therapy was good. There were some gems that I got in there. With my eyes, I decided when I was in like the seventh or eighth grade that I was going to live a life of loneliness and isolation because if someone could look past my homosexuality, at that time I hadn't accepted it. I thought I was going to lose all of my friends and loved ones. Um, if people could make it past that, also up until that point, whenever I got close to somebody, they moved away. So that was another reason for me to isolate. And then came my eyes, and I was like, well, I don't want people to feel like they can't do anything around me because I can't see anything, and I don't want other people to feel limited because of my condition. So I'm also going to isolate because of that. So I went into heavy isolation. Seventh, eighth grade, didn't want to live to see 25, honestly. Um, and so when I talked to Alex, he was like, one of the things that he said that really illuminated things for me was that, like, when we're children or when we're younger and we don't have as much experience in life, or we don't know if we can navigate certain difficult situations because until that point, we don't have the mental or emotional facilities and capabilities to really handle those situations. And like any decision that we make in that space, we don't have to honor. Like just because that's something that you couldn't deal with or accept when you were a child doesn't mean that it's something that you can't deal with now that you've actually matured and you've lived more life. And I was like, wow. Because that whole time I had held myself to that, like, I don't want to live to see 25. Like, there is no hope for me in the future. I don't even want to get close to anybody. I'm a burden on the people that I love and that I care about. And if I really cared about people, then I wouldn't burden them and ask them to be in my life, knowing that this will eventually happen. So he helped me break that from like seventh grade to, so what was seventh grade? Seventh grade would have been about 2007, 2008. Hold on, wait. 11, 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10. No, 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 no. 9, 10, 10, 11, 8, 9, 7, 8. Yeah, so 2007, 2008 was freshman year. 2008, 2009, junior year. 9, 10, sophomore year. 10, 11, senior year. So like 2006 ish. So from 2006 ish to 2016, 2017, I had developed with this mentally. And since I held that limitation and blockage, as I was saying earlier, it's like as I grew older, but still fearing that, it's like it stunted my development in that area. And while I could progress in all these other areas, when it came back to that, it's like I would go right back to that child who didn't know how to handle it. And not only did I not know how to handle it, I didn't talk about it. I didn't research it. I didn't do anything. It was a big bad in the shadows that I was too afraid to even approach. And so Alex saying that was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like I am different now. I have grown now and I am better equipped to handle life than I was when I was like a child. um, but then Alex was gone, so I couldn't continue therapy with him. And then the group was gone, so I couldn't continue therapy with the group. And so I guess my experience was like, and that's one thing that I've been blessed with that I've noticed for a long time. Whenever I'm really in a time of need in my life and whenever I really need guidance, there's always been someone there to give me what I needed. Now, unfortunately, those people don't really stick around too much. And so what eventually happens is it feeds into that, like every time I care about somebody, they leave story that I had going on. But after that, and after I lost my coping mechanism slash my distractor, I had to actually focus on addressing and healing the thing. So in October 2018, end of October, beginning of November, I ordered my first tarot and oracle deck because my best friend had got into her own path of spirituality, which encouraged me to get into my path of spirituality that existed outside of the religious structure that I grew up with. Um, And what else? I got into meditation. I meditated for an hour and a half to 2 hours a day for like 7 days. I would go on YouTube, look up one of those like binaural beats. Oh, that's why I started talking about this. Okay. So after the group session ended, one of those days, that friend that I had who forced me to go to CAPS, I went to CAPS and I talked to one of the women who led the group session. She was like, "Oh, hey Patrick, how you been?" I'm like, "Oh, hey, like not great. Wish we had group therapy this semester, but we don't, so I'm just making do by not doing anything." And she was like, she asked me if I had considered medication. So basically, what had happened with the medication was that I was taking it for a minute. Over winter break, I stopped, and once I stopped taking the medication, I couldn't get back in the habit and pattern of taking the medication. I'm not great with daily routine things, and so I was on it good every day. But winter break happened, I started to stay up and sleep in, and I was like, "Did I take my medication today?" Like, "Yeah, I'm sure I took it." I didn't take it. The next day, "Did I take my medication today?" "Yeah, I think I took it." I didn't take it. And then eventually, like subconsciously, I guess I knew that I didn't take it, but consciously I thought I did. So once that pattern had been broken, I just stopped taking it. But up until this point, was seeing a lot of Headspace commercials in like YouTube, a lot of Headspace ads. And so I was looking at Headspace. I think I downloaded it one day, but I had never used it. And so when she asked me, what I heard was, have you considered meditation? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Like I've been seeing all these Headspace ads and I've been thinking about meditating. And she was like, oh, sorry, I think you misheard me. I said medication. I was like, oh, well, I was on medication before, but I kind of stopped. And I heard exactly what I needed to hear. And I got into meditation. And that's why I went back and told the story about group therapy and stuff like that, because it was the same lady from group therapy who I heard meditation, she said medication. So I got into meditation, it was like 7 days of at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. I would type up binaural beats because I knew a little bit about it. I knew enough about it. I had been exposed to enough about it to know like the terms to type into YouTube to find the videos. And that sort of really started my path of spirituality. At the same time, I was looking into spirit guides. If I'm being I'm gonna be real honest with y'all real quick. I was in a very, 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 very dark place in those 2 days, and I did not care about life. And I looked up, I Googled like, how do you sell your soul? I looked it up. And what I found was, first of all, it wasn't like any actual like information, thank goodness. But I did find this person in some forum who said that they had done it and they wish that they didn't. And I'm already like not messing with Ouija boards and stuff like that. Like I'm already scaredy anyway. So I wasn't actually gonna do it. But I was in that space when I was like, okay. Because I think what had happened was I had done this, like I typed in spirit guides. I think I actually found Victor Odo, who had it was like a guided meditation to connect to your spirit guides or something. I did that. I had that experience. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like cool, whatever. Then like the next day or the day after that, the darkest night of the soul of my life, just like numb, not feeling anything besides abandoned by these spirit guides that I thought I had just connected to. So I'm like, okay, if y'all ain't gonna help me, bet. And I looked it up and I was like, okay, yo, this is dumb. I'm not gonna do this. So I'm glad I didn't. I had the experience that I needed to have. In that, like, even if things are that dark, girl, I'm not going all the way there. That's not my path. That's not me. For some people, maybe in whatever lifetime they're in, they think that that's what they want, or that's what they want, and they go about that path. It ain't me. And I think I forget about that sometimes. I'm glad, but I really Googled it. But anyway, after those two darkest nights, like the first night, I was just like sad, and then I woke up the next morning still in that space. And I was like, wow, I feel like neglected by or abandoned by the spirit guides that I just connected to or whatever. And in that space, when I did that guided, like when I do guided meditations, like I start with a guided meditation, but I do my own thing. And so I'm like kind of in it, kind of not. I just use it as a framework for to like how to begin, and then I let the process just complete itself for me. And so in that space of the guided meditation where I met those two spirit guides, there was also like a piece of me, a fragment of me, a higher version of myself that was asleep. And I've talked about this before. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what's that like aspect of me doing asleep? And then I went up to that aspect of me. And like while it was still asleep, we had like this conversation. And then I had my darkest night. And so after a few days, after 2 days, um, I woke up and it had broken a little bit. And when it had broken, that's when I'm like, okay, I need to do everything in my power to face and address the things that I've been letting sort of pile up. Because if I ever reach this spot again, I don't know if I'm going to come out of it. And so that's when I looked up the binaural beat meditation. I've posted it a few times. I'll link it again in the description box under this one if I remember. There's like this 2 hour super consciousness meditation that I did that worked for me. And it's just like the binaural beat. So it's not guided at all. But what happened was that aspect of myself that was asleep, like when I was in that 2 hour meditation, in the beginning, there was a mantra that came to my mind line by line. So I repeated it, and then the next line would be revealed, and I repeated like everything that I had. And basically, it was a mantra to awaken that part of me and to begin to encourage integration with that part. And so after that mantra, I went on this whole little, and it's wild because I think I have aphantasia. So when I close my eyes and I try to envision something, I don't actually see it. All I see is black. Some people can envision things so well that in their mind's eye, it looks basically like how the world looks when their eyes are open. In my mind's eye, like when I close my eyes, it's just black. Now I can envision elements of something, and so I can put it together, but I don't actually see it. It's like I have the concept of it, but I don't see it. And so when I went on that little like that when that aspect of myself woke up and took me on that journey, I was like, oh snap, this is wild. Wait. Anyway, so about 3 days into meditation, 4 days in, I finally started using the Headspace app. Now Headspace was they have the free beginners course, and I think it's really, really good for teaching you how to meditate in that it reaffirms that like meditation isn't necessarily like not thinking about anything, and that getting into meditation is a journey. Now, the first time I downloaded Headspace, I was like, 10 minutes is a lot. I'm gonna do like 3 minutes a day. When I got into Headspace after having a few days of meditating for like 2 hours, I'm like, 10 minutes? I need more than 10 minutes. And so I would still do my binaural beat meditation and then do Headspace on top of that. And doing the Headspace was really good for naturally calming the mind to the point where there are less thoughts and being like getting you to the position where you can observe a thought and let it pass instead of being swept into it. So those two things together, really amazing. And then my deck came like right before I went to London. And so that's when I started like reading myself. I started with the well known animal spirits because I was like, animals, I kind of know. Tarot was 78 cards. It was a system. I didn't know anything about it. I was extremely intimidated. It came with a guidebook, and I'm good at learning from books. But I'm like, oh, this is intimidating. I did watch, it was like an hour and a half video that went through the minors, and then maybe a half an hour to 45-minute video that went through the majors like one time. Didn't really retain any of that, but I had the guidebook and that in the back of my brain. And then I went to London. And because I had worked on everything that I did work on, I was actually able to enjoy London. And I went with my Libran best friend. That was probably the best week of our friendship ever. So I'm glad that we got along when we were in London. His family is amazing. His brother and sister are there. We stayed at his brother's place. And like his brother's place was immaculate. Like I walk in and I immediately feel out of place. Money has not been my experience so far, but it is part of my experience moving forward, and I'm excited about that. I'm very excited about that actually. And before I was like, oh, like money, like I'm not interested in physical things like money, like I'd rather have whatever. Now I'm like, you know what? I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to explore. I want to be able to give back and help and impact and inspire. And I want to live nice and comfortably. And I want to be able to afford the things that I want when I want them. Not that I'm opposed to waiting, but that is part of the experience that I want. And all of this extra stuff, I don't have to put on the money. Like, primarily, honestly, I want to be able to travel and I want to be able to give back in some ways. Like, scholarship funds, those are going to be things that I do. There are some other things that I'm going to be doing with the money when I get the money that is very like sort of give back, philanthropic, that I'm so excited to begin doing anyway. I felt out of place, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, his apartment looks like something like out of a movie, a TV show, or a magazine." And I'm like living in here. There was a little bidet, a bum gun. I was like, "How do I even use this?" My Libran friend was like, "You'll figure it out." And then he would come in and be like, "Why is there water all over the floor?" I'm like, "Well, you said I would figure it out, and water just goes everywhere." He was like, "Just use the toilet paper." Anyway, I enjoyed London because I had begun to work through everything that I worked through. I didn't actually feel out of place when I was there. I didn't feel any like lower or lesser of myself. Um, and by I like it was my plan to still meditate in London. I think I was on day 7 of Headspace, so I still had 3 days left. Um, and I'm sorry. And so I did that, and I was like, one day I was like, "You want to meditate with me?" I said that to my friend. He was like, not really." So I don't think we ended up doing it together. I think maybe we kind of did, and then he just fell asleep and took a nap or something. I don't remember. But there was a point when I was just sitting because he was sleeping. I was just sitting in the apartment looking at everything. The view from the apartment was amazing. There was a sky lounge in his apartment, like in this building, that had a view of London that is like comparable to the view that you get from the Shard. And I'm just like, it was mind blowing to be staying in a place that has a view like that. Now, the first day I was scared because the only thing separating you from the ground that high up is like some glass. And I'm like, oof, I don't know if I'm trying to like, I already kind of sort of got a fear of heights. So I was like, I ain't trying to do this. But on one of the last nights, I did muster up the courage to actually go on the Sky Lounge and like walk around. I think they also had a pool up there. Never went to the pool. Um, but I'm glad I did. And so like one day, I was like, I could have this life if I wanted it. And I could have more. Like I've really been limiting myself. And I was like, this ain't necessarily gonna come easy, so I will have to work for it. And I was like, ew, work. I don't know if I want to do that. Now I'm like, work, please, where? Give me some. Give me a job, somebody. Because I'm just so like one of the things that I'm most excited about is traveling. Especially now that I have eyesight. I'm sorry. So, I'm gonna be talking for an hour. That's fine. Um, so I had that moment, I had that epiphany, and I told my friend, I was like, when I first came here, I was just like blown away. But like, this is something that I'm capable of creating for myself if I want to. He's like, oh, that's cool. So we enjoyed London. London was a good experience. Um, this is all tease out now. I, so we went the week of Thanksgiving, and I told some of my professors, I think I told all of them that I was going to London for the week of Thanksgiving. And so Purdue doesn't let out until like the Wednesday before. Some people will cancel class the Monday and Tuesday. Some people don't. One of my professors had an exam on Tuesday. He does that every year. He has his exam the Tuesday before Thanksgiving break. And I told him, I was like, I'm going to London. He was like, okay, well, maybe we can do the exam before. I had already given up on classes, so I didn't even care. But I was in a group, and my group didn't care about me, so I didn't care about them. Usually, if I'm in a group, like I'll do whatever work I need to do for the group because, like, just because I've given up on me doesn't mean that I'm going to abandon the responsibilities that I have to other people because I'm not really like that. But since number one, they didn't really care about me, so I didn't care about them. Number two, they procrastinated a lot. Like when I actually cared about class, I was ready to work. And when we had them free days to work, ain't nobody want to use them. And so now y'all want me to cram at last minute just because y'all cramming at last minute? Now, I also did have one of the easier processes. So hold up, wait. That's interesting because I think the process that I ended up choosing for my own project is the same process that I would have done for them or with them. Huh, interesting. Anyway, moving forward. So I was in London and one of the dudes texted me. He was like, "Hey, like, are you coming to class or like, are you working on this?" I'm like, "No, I'm in London." I was like, "No." He was like, "Are you coming to class?" I was like, "I'm in London." He was like, "So, like, are you gonna do whatever?" I was like, "Yeah, no." And for some people, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you were in a group and you were that person." In my mind, I'm like, number one, like if you're not interested or involved in like how I'm doing, and if y'all are gonna procrastinate to this point anyway, I don't really feel bad. So anyway, and then I was like, you know what? I'm kind of sort of doing y'all a favor at the same time because as unprepared as y'all are, at least y'all have the excuse that I'm not doing whatever I'm supposed to be doing. So maybe that'll get y'all some like some brownie points or some lenience or something like that. Anyway, so London was amazing. I go back home, um, and then there's a few weeks left in 2018. That was like so that was Thanksgiving 2018. I was in London. I flew back home. I actually got to see Winter Wonderland in Hyde Park before I left. The lights in London were amazing. We went to Nando's. We walked to Nando's. Now, this Libran friend, he'll just lie to me. He lies. He lies. He lies. He lies. I remember we went to Hyde Park, Winter Wonderland. We walked through it a little bit. I've been craving funnel cake for years. I was smelling funnel cakes, but not seeing no funnel cakes. I think it was churros that I was smelling. I get some souvenirs. I actually miscalculated the number of souvenirs that I needed to get, so I didn't get to get one for myself, which is fine. I'm into keychains, and so I was gonna get myself a keychain, but I ended up giving it to one of my besties. Like I got all these keychains. This keychain he broke, but I got this one from Eric Sonia. If y'all see her on here, she's one of my best friends. I got this one from her. And I also got another one from her. It was on this one, but I think it broke. So I'm sorry. I don't think I ever told you. But it broke off because I actually carry like all of these keychains I carry with me, so I'm kind of rough on them. This is one of the keychains that I got from my other best friend when she went to Costa Rica, and I got like a bunch of little monkeys in it. When she went to Costa Rica, and these I got on campus. They're bottle openers that I've never needed to use. Um, this is one of the keychains that I got in Latin class. In Latin 3 and 4, every year she would give us a keychain. And I only have one of them because the other ones you can see the rings. I left the rings on here. They broke. They broke off. This one, let me put on my reading glasses. This one says Veritas. And Veritas is truth. And who is this? This might be Demeter or Ceres. This might be Ceres. You know, we get cereal from Ceres, goddess of the grain. Um, there was one with Minerva or Pallas Athena in her owl, and that one said Aude Sapere, dare to be wise. And then there was another one that said Noli te huc in ire, and it means like don't go in there. It was like a class-wide inside joke from I Claudius. He was like, don't go in there. Noli te huc in ire. These came from high school. This one was from prom. All of the letters have faded. And it said, please return on Monday, which is like, you know, prom is wild, but be safe. Come back on Monday. And then please return on Monday, PROM prom. This one I got for, you know, class of 2011. Anyway, keychains are a thing for me. Even when I downsized my keys, because I used to carry this whole thing with me everywhere. Even when I downsized, I still have a bunch of keychains. Anyway, so we were going from Hyde Park to the London Museum or something like that. And my friend was like, oh, it's like a 20-minute walk, or we can get on the little subway train thing. And I was like, oh, we can walk. That was like a 40-minute walk, 45-minute walk. And then we get back and he's like, yeah, it was like a 45-minute walk, but he was talking to his girlfriend. He was like, it's like a 45-minute walk, but I lied to Patrick and told him that it was only like 20 minutes because I knew he would complain if I said 45. And that's why we have the relationship that we have. Anyway, so I came back from London. I had a few days left in 2018. Somebody that I thirst followed on Snapchat he got into like Abraham Hicks and meditation and stuff. And it was the language that she was using. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And even though I thirst followed him, I like never looked at his Snapchat story because I don't really thirst follow people too much. And when I do, like, I don't really follow them. Like, I don't keep up with them. So then it's like, why am I following you? I think I was actually probably going to unfollow him. But then I noticed that, like, Abraham Hicks, I was like, oh my gosh, what's that? And then he told me about Abraham Hicks and stuff like that. End of 2018. So starting 2019, I was extremely intentional about working through my eyes, working through my relationship with my family, working through fears of intimacy and dependence, and allowing people into my life, even family and friends. Come March, it was about relationship anxieties. And over the summer, it was like getting over those relationship anxieties. Um, and yeah, 2019 was extremely intentional. Um, and I'm glad it was because it prepared me for this year. If I didn't have the foundation of late 2018 and like the entirety of 2019, I don't even want to know what 2020 would have been like for me. And I kind of sort of forgot why I started talking about all this, but that's all of this. So let's get back into this and let's wrap this up. Because goodness, what am I doing, right? I feel like some of this stuff I've talked about before, but it's fine. Anyway, like that part, like when that mantra came to me about awakening my higher self, that started like this conversation that had always been there, but like deepening that conversation and being more intentional with that conversation. And so again, like that's the part of me that knows that like I don't have to worry or be like anxious or afraid of a lot of things. And it's the part of me that I spent like all of 2019 learning how to trust through repetition and experience. I also talked about like knowing when a transition moment will happen. And right now I don't know anything. I don't know nothing. And it's interesting because usually like I have a good vibe or a good feeling of like people and like whether like a job is for me or an opportunity is for me or not. But like I don't know much of nothing right now. Besides the fact that it's going to be great and grand and it's going to work out for my benefit as long as I continue to show up and do what I need to do. So yeah, that's all that. Final message from these. I'll give it 3 more shuffles. Last one. I'll do 1 more. What does this say? Embrace. And we're going to read this in the Libra. Is Libra Spanish for book? The Hon. Hon is Japanese for book. I don't remember how to say book in Chinese. Where my phone at? Hey Siri, how do you say book in Spanish? Or is it Libro?
I found 4 ways to say book
Libro.
in Spanish. If you mean a published written work, you'd say libro. If you mean collection of many sheets of paper bound together, volumen. Set of sheets bound together on one edge, librillo. Sacred Christian writings, Biblia.
Okay, so it's Libro. Libro. So what number is this? Embrace. Number 11. We've got an 11, and we just had a 4711, right? Joy was 47, number 11. Yeah, 4711. Look at that. Embrace. So believe. What to say? Oh, hold on. There we go. Believe in yourself and others to discover a deeper importance to your being. Recognize that your interactions with others are important. Healthy relationships require a lot of work to maintain them. In many parts of the world, hugging is recognized as a familiar kind of greeting, in addition to being a manner of acknowledgement or support and reassurance for someone else. Ganesha is encouraging you to maintain a compassionate heart. Be nurturing towards yourself and others. There will be a lot to be gained from seeing things from a practical or down to earth perspective when it comes to dealing with others or pertaining to your present circumstance. Focus on creating a balanced life for yourself. Remember that more can be accomplished when you are serene. Be imaginative and helpful. Deal with issues as they arise. Keep your wits about you while you determine the best course of action and seek simple solutions to fix the problem with minimal fuss. Depending on the relationship of the people involved, a hug can symbolize familiarity, love, affection, or friendship. A person may hug another in a show of support, comfort, or to console. There is an exchange of energy that takes place as you give and receive at the same time. So that's how I'm going to end this. I hope you have a good whatever whenever you see this again. This one a little bit longer than I thought, but that's fine. Maybe in me sharing, someone gets something, or you get to know me a little bit more, or you don't. Maybe you don't watch it at all. Maybe it's just good for me to appreciate where I am now and this journey that I've been officially on since 2018. Since a little over 2 years ago. 2018. A little over 2 years ago, 2018. Since a little over 2 years ago. And yeah, I'll catch y'all tomorrow when I pull some more wisdom from Morgan and Shine. Take this as it resonates. You know, time is not finite, but there are moments of potential that are linked to the fulfillment of other moments of potential. And so, as we go through these series of unfolding potentials, may you continue to make the choices that align you to the higher and higher, better and better, more abundant ones moving forward. Bye.